Small but mighty, that's right. Just like Dorothy. So obviously that song is from The Wizard of Oz. And one of the questions I might have about the song is that actually, is it true or is it an illusion? Are we being asked to look outside of ourselves somewhere over the blue, over the rainbow, and will skies really be blue there? Or is it just an illusion and we've forgotten that our true self is always home where our heart is? That's really the lesson probably from The Wizard of Oz. Now I want to use The Wizard of Oz today as the basis of my talk. And if we use our imagination and go back and see Dorothy and see where we are, I know we've all seen The Wizard of Oz. The first part of the story, we see Dorothy and Toto running up this gravel road, barbed wire fences on both sides. And obviously, Dorothy is running from something, but we don't know what that is yet. But she's terrified and she's trying to leave from something that's behind her. Now, she, at that point, kneels down and she says this. "She isn't coming yet, Toto. Did she hurt you? She tried to, didn't she? Come on, we'll go tell Annie M and Uncle Henry what happened." Now, before Dorothy and Toto get back home, I want to go there first, and I want to go and find Annie M and Uncle Henry myself with all of us. When we get back to their farm, we find them in the barn and see that Aunt Em and Uncle Henry are working feverishly trying to get these little baby chicks out of a box. And that box turns out to be a broken incubator. They let us know quickly. Now, just a few seconds ago, we learned that Dorothy was now living with her Uncle Henry and Auntie Em. Now, we all know that as parents, we act as a kind of a pseudo-incubator ourselves. And this very simple scene that we have here is suggesting that Dorothy's parents have probably died, or at least they're no longer available on the scene. So we understand real quickly that while Dorothy is physically alive, she is actually there with a broken heart because of the loss of her parents. Now, just at that time, Dorothy runs in the barn and she sees Auntie Em, and she runs up to Auntie Em and she says, Auntie Em, you have no idea what just happened. This crazy lady tried to hurt Toto and chased us. It's terrible." Well, Auntie Em was not going to buy into that because she had had some dealings with Dorothy before, and she said, "Oh, Dorothy, you go by that lady's house every single day and you get in trouble every single day. What are you thinking?" But Dorothy deflects that. And she says, "Oh, Auntie Em, I only go by 2 or 3 times a week." So the story that that we probably remember when we've seen The Wizard of Oz is that there's this mean old lady chasing Dorothy and she's wrong and she's at fault. But is that really the truth, or is that another illusion? So Auntie Em says, I don't have time for this nonsense. You go out and play. So Dorothy does that. She goes out in the yard and she sees the 3 farmhands. And she runs right up to Zeke, who's going to be the cowardly lion eventually. And she says, Zeke, you have no idea what just happened. I was just chased by this mean lady down the street. And Zeke dismissed her as well and walks off. And then as she turns, she faces Hunk. The guy's name is Hunk, H-U-N-K. And he's going to become the Scarecrow eventually. And he looks at her, just immediately says, Dorothy, what are you doing? Do you have any brains whatsoever? It's like your brain is filled with straw. What are you thinking about? If you just go home a different way, this whole problem will disappear. Now, isn't it funny how most of us, including me, saw The Wizard of Oz 1,000 times and always sympathize with poor little Dorothy? But you see, she is the one, through her own actions, that has caused this issue. Again, it's an illusion of this story. It's kind of surprising to me, actually. So we all know there's a tornado coming, and the tornado does come, and Dorothy is knocked unconscious and begins to dream. And the next thing we see is her house flying up in the air, and Dorothy is in the house, and the house comes crashing down in what will become Munchkin Land. When Dorothy, and right now the whole scene is sepia color, it's a brown, yellow-brown color in the whole first scene up until right this moment. And as Dorothy opens the door, the entire world is in technicolor. And that is a sign of immense personal transformation. Not only have we just had a tornado, which really displays and discusses an enormous transformation, because oftentimes with tornadoes, what was is no more, and what will be revealed has not yet come. Because that's what tornadoes mean metaphysically. It's a big personal transformation taking place. Dorothy, of course, is really concerned, and she has know where she is. She loves it, so beautiful and blue, but she's really concerned. And oftentimes, at the moment of biggest crisis, we call upon some inner wisdom, inner guide. And that is when Glenda the Good Witch shows up in the bubble. I wish I had a bubble like that coming down. And be a great way to travel. Glenda comes and, of course, asks her, are you a good witch or a bad witch? And she said, well, I'm not a witch. I'm just Dorothy. And she said, well, if you look right over here, you can see that you've just killed the Wicked Witch of the East. Now, metaphysically, this has nothing to do with Dorothy actually killing a person or even a wicked witch, even though we all have a little bit of wicked witch within us, every one of us. Some of us are even married to those people. So Dorothy looks and says, I don't know what to do. But this moment of realization that the Wicked Witch of the East has now passed away is actually a part of Dorothy. It's a part of her negativity and her fear. And we saw that in the earlier scene where she is very, very young and very immature. And if she's going to grow up, now is the time. This is the perfect Joseph Campbell hero's journey message. So even when Moses, in the early days of the Exodus, killed the Egyptian, it didn't mean that Moses was killing an Egyptian. It meant that Moses was letting go of what he needed to in order to begin his journey. So that's really what that part says. And it's interesting that Dorothy is in Munchkin Land, and she has to leave because Munchkin Land is the land of 1,000 children, and Dorothy is very young, very immature. If she's going to grow, like all of us, we must leave our childlike behaviors and thoughts behind, and that's what Dorothy was actually doing. It's also really kind of cool that the yellow brick road started right there in Munchkin Land. How appropriate, because she was going to have to leave and walk down that yellow brick road toward the Emerald City. And she does. Now, along the way, Dorothy meets 3 characters in the forest on the way to Emerald City. The first was a scarecrow who told her that he had no brain. And she goes, well, how can you talk? And he says, well, I don't know. But he says, a lot of people without brains say a lot, don't they? I like that line. Pretty appropriate today. And then he meets the scarecrow. She meets the scarecrow. And then she meets the Tin Woodsman. And the Tin Woodsman is also Dorothy. Every one of these characters is an aspect of Dorothy. The Tin Woodsman says, I'm empty inside. I don't have a heart. That's exactly where Dorothy is in this moment, because she has a broken heart, and she is empty and doesn't want to have emotions. And then she meets the Cowardly Lion, who is absolutely a wuss. And Dorothy can relate to that because she hasn't really grown emotionally to realize that she does have power. I mean, she doesn't even understand that yet. and she's in a difficult place psychologically. So that group goes on and makes their way toward the Emerald City, and they do have several challenges along the way. But when you look at those challenges, every one of those challenges is so typical of all of us. We know we have to do something. We know we're going to go to a different place, but it frightens us. It frightens us a lot. And sometimes we put challenges in front of ourselves so we can't have what we want. And I think that's what these particular challenges are saying to Dorothy. So Dorothy eventually gets to the Emerald City. And once again, the Emerald City is filled with metaphysical aspects of it that are transformational. The first thing they do is take the 4 of them off, not Toto, Toto's with them, the 4 of them off and send them off to be cleaned. Well, if you get buffed and cleaned, what you're really doing is beginning to change into a new character. You're becoming to let go of all that past dirt and taking on a new shine. And that's what it started with. And I also like the fact that when they got in the buggy to do that, Dorothy saw this strange-looking horse pulling the wagon and was told that it was the horse of a different color. Now, interestingly, that phrase is only used when you're doing something or talking about something to this point, and then something brand new, totally unrelated, happens after that. So the horse is a horse of a different color. Says that something brand new is occurring, and be aware. Eventually, they get in to see the Wizard of Oz. And Dorothy and the 3 aspects of herself now and Toto all enter this long hallway, and the Wizard of Oz is yelling and yelling, and he says, "Who are you? Who has come to see me?" And Dorothy steps up, I guess for everybody, and says, "I'm Dorothy. I'm the meek and the small." Now, if you're applying for a job, that's probably not what you should say. "I'm Dorothy. I'm the meek and the small." Probably isn't going to work too good. But they all have wishes they want to have granted. The Wizard of Oz says, "Fine, we can do that, but you have to do something for me." Quid pro quo. And he says, "You need to go get the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West." And that terrified them, but that was their only choice, so they decided to do it. But once again, the Wizard of Oz is not just a wizard. It's not just a voice up there. The Wizard of Oz is an inner voice within Dorothy, because somewhere inside of her, she knows, just like we all know, that we have to face our fears. So his voice was compelling her to go do something she didn't want to do, but on the other hand, knew she had to. So they do leave, afraid, and end up going to find the Wicked Witch of the West castle. And I don't know if you remember the scene, but they were going through this really dark, spooky, crazy-looking forest looking for the castle. And the Wicked Witch of the West sent her monkey army down to kidnap Dorothy. Now, I don't know about whether you all have had any monkey mind situations ever in your life, but that is exactly what this is. This is the monkey army is Dorothy's 7,000 fear thoughts going on all at one time, showing up all in one place, and it's the worst possible situation she can think about. Dorothy is, in fact, kidnapped with Toto, and they fly off to the Witch of the West castle. And interestingly, Dorothy is imprisoned in the thoughts of her own mind. In the thoughts of her own mind. And at the same time, Toto is completely unaware of any of this. Toto is the God character of this show, of this movie, of this story. Toto is her higher self, unaffected by all of this fear because he has none. Toto also never changes color. It's the only character in the whole movie that doesn't change ever. So he's all-loving, ever-present, unfearful, ready for action, and always a guide. So Toto is also in this prison of Dorothy's thoughts up in the castle. But he's awake enough so that the first opportunity to leave, he escapes and gets out of the castle and goes down into the forest and finds the three aspects of Dorothy who are still putting the scarecrow back together again, because he was torn up the most. Toto finds them, looks at them, barks at them, in other words, I know what to do, follow me. I've always known what to do, because that's what the God Spirit within us is. It's always the guide, always the God leading us to a better place, even if we don't listen. So Toto leads them back to the castle, and everybody follows. But there's a huge transformation taking place actually within Dorothy through the three characters that are outside. Because the scarecrow, as they look down on the entrance into the castle, says, I've got a plan. Kind of thought, what? I've got a plan? Yeah, I've got a plan, the scarecrow says. And he looks at the Cowardly Lion and he says, and you are going to lead it. Now the Cowardly Lion says, absolutely, I'm going to lead it. But I just have one request. You guys talk me out of it. But they do. They end up getting in the castle with Toto as well. And once they're inside the castle, they don't really know where to go. But once again, this all-knowing Toto looks at them and barks at them again and leads them up the stairway to where Dorothy is. The Tin Woodsman uses his axe and chops the door down, which is symbolic of opening this presence to Dorothy. And when the door opened, there was like a breath of fresh air filled the room, because Dorothy was no longer bound by her fears. It changed the moment. And Dorothy began to realize in that moment who she really was. So they do leave. They try to escape the castle, but they get cornered up at the very top. And I know we've probably seen this scene in our own eyes before. And so the Wicked Witch of the West is there, and everybody is there, but Dorothy and her companions are in a different place. They're not these little afraid, scaredy cat people anymore. Something's happened within them. And the Wicked Witch of the West takes her broomstick, lights it up, and is going to burn the scarecrow first. Dorothy, of course, grabs a bucket of water, throws it on the scarecrow's arm, and it flies over the Wicked Witch of the West. And we've all seen that scene, melting, 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 I'm melting, I'm melting. Anyway, that's what was happening. But I don't view it as melting. I really believe that Dorothy actually dissolved her fears and negativity right there in that moment. Because the Wicked Witch, the negative aspects of the Wicked Witch, was also a part of Dorothy as well. She needed to rid herself of those fears to move forward. So they pick up the broom and they head back to the Emerald City, triumphant. And this time when they walk in down the hallway to see the Wizard of Oz, there is no Dorothy the timid and small at all. They are absolutely demanding what they came for. And he says, no, I'm sorry, I got to have a day to think about this. But what I really like about the scene is that it's Toto who goes over and grabs the curtain, because he's really the highest of the level of the people there, of the aspects of Dorothy, and he pulls back the curtain on the Wizard of Oz and reveals the truth. Reveals the truth. And Dorothy herself, at that moment in time, was understanding that it had been a mistake and an illusion to put her faith and trust in an outside authority. In an outside authority. And that's the truth. I truly believe that. It's actually within. So a lot does happen at this moment, and the three aspects of Dorothy get their diploma and their heart and a badge or a medal for courage. But something unusual is happening is now Dorothy realizes that she has now integrated all of these aspects within her and actually doesn't need them anymore. So one of the final scenes is that she's going to leave those three aspects of her back because they're going to now run the Kingdom of Oz. But as we probably all know, as the wizard was going to go off in his balloon, something happened and Dorothy got left behind. Now, oftentimes, even when we feel big and strong and tough and collected and have it all together, something happens that shocks us and drives us back into that place of fear. It's a normal occurrence for human beings. And that's what was happening right here. Dorothy, once again, was beginning to panic and fear. And in that moment, Glenda the Good Witch, her inner wisdom, returned again. And Dorothy was saying, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. And Glenda said, pish posh, basically. You've always been able to go home. You've always been able to go home. And everybody goes, what? Why didn't you tell us? Spirit speaks to us all the time. But who doesn't listen? It's us. And that's what Glenda the witch told her. She said to Dorothy, she said, if I had told you earlier, you wouldn't have believed me. It wouldn't have done any good. You would have just back-talked like you did with Annie M all that time. It wouldn't have done you any good. So Dorothy finally realized in this moment that the power was within her all along. There's a scene early in the movie where the Wicked Witch of the West tries to reach down and grab her ruby slippers. But that was an indication and a representation of Dorothy's power. And nobody could have that and can have that unless we choose to give it away. Home is where the heart is, my friend. That's the story. Thank you. Let's take a lot of that into meditation. And I titled this The Way Home. Let us settle into the stillness now. Let the breath slow. Let the body soften. Let the mind rest. There is a moment in every journey when the seeking quiets and the soul begins to remember. Dorothy searched far and wide through illusion, fear, and wonder, believing that someone else held the key to her return. But in the end, it was not the wizard. It was not the Emerald City. It was not the ruby slippers. It was the still small voice within, the whisper that had been there all along. Home was never a place, it was a knowing. It's a presence, a truth waiting to be remembered. And so we ask ourselves gently, not with urgency, but with curiosity, what quiet presence exists within me even when I forget? Let this question drift through our minds, soft, silent, and full of grace. No, there is nothing to fix, nothing to prove, only a remembering of who we are. And now, as we rest in this truth, let the words that we are about to hear rise like a whisper from within, not as something new, but as something ancient, something we have always known. I am light.